Hey, this is Bret the Hitman Hart, and you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com.
All right, we're back here at In Your Head, and we're joined by the Patriot Del Wilkes. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Good.
And do want to let everybody know, it's almost hit its the goal here on the Kickstarter. But there is a Kickstarter out there, Del Wilkes, the Patriot, the man behind the mask, from Elbow Productions. And we have the link up on the website for the Kickstarter, where you can just search for it right on Kickstarter. And like I said, it's getting near the goal, but you can always help out more. The more people donate, the more stuff you can have on there. Now, how did this all come about, the man behind the mask?
I got a Facebook message last year, maybe fall of last year, from Michael Elliot, and he sent me a link or to a link where I could go look at some of the stuff he's done. You know, he's done other things like this with Ivan Koloff, Rock and Roll Express, Magnum TA, Jimmy Valiant, and he wanted to do one on me, and we had an opportunity to meet in Winston-Salem in November of last year at WrestleCade, an event that I was making an appearance at, and it just went from there. And we got started several months ago on this project, and I couldn't be more pleased, number one, that Michael thought enough of me to approach me about doing a documentary on not only my career but my life. And we've interviewed several of the guys that I work with in the business. We've also got family members in it. We've got guys that I played football with at the University of South Carolina that will be a part of this and will be on this documentary, including the 1980 Heisman Trophy winner, George Rogers. So got a lot of great athletes, great wrestlers on this, and I think the fans will thoroughly enjoy it. And I appreciate everyone that has gone to Kickstarter and donated. I just want to say thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. And you mentioned, it's about your career and also about your life. And for you yourself personally, what would you like this to accomplish? What would you like people to get out of the finished project?
Good question. I think number one, as a little boy, there were two things that just blew me away. Two things that I dreamed about daily doing, and that was playing football for the University of South Carolina, and that was becoming a pro wrestler. And through a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, I was able to do both of those. So I would like for people to take from this that you can make your dreams come true. You can. You don't have to settle for it. If you've got a dream, go after it. Chase it with enthusiasm. And I was able to do that. And then secondly, not only is it a story of success, but there's also a part in there where I got myself in a mess. Shortly after I retired from wrestling, I had to retire because of injuries, chronic recurring injuries, and my life took a deep, dark turn. And I was in a bad place for several years. But through God's amazing grace and through the help of family and friends, I was able to come out of that probably about 14 years ago and get my life back on track. So it's also a story of failure, but redemption and being able to overcome those failures as well. And I think most of us could say that about our life. We've had some wonderful high points. We've had some very, very horrible low points. But through perseverance and just staying after it, we're able to come out the other side better people. So that's what I hope everybody takes away from it.
Yeah. And, there are a lot of people from wrestling who have negative things happen to them in wrestling, but not all of them end up redeeming themselves after that. So congratulations that you've been able to do that.
Well, I appreciate that, and you were exactly right. My wife and I sat down several months back, and I wrote down the name of every wrestler that I could think of who wrestled during the time I wrestled. Maybe they were on the tail end of their career when I was starting my career. Maybe when I was ending mine, they were just getting started. But our paths crossed during my career, and I came up with just a little over 80 names of guys that are no longer with us. And most of them fell victim to that lifestyle that you can get caught up in when you're on the road night after night and putting your body through so much. So I'm very, very fortunate that I was able to survive and come out a better man for it.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever talked to any younger wrestlers about that? You know, things to stay away from and look out for?
Not only younger wrestlers, but I've talked to a wide variety of people. I have the opportunity on occasion and quite often to share my story, and with youth groups, with church groups, with adults. So this happened to me when I took this spiral downward. It happened to me at the end or after my career. I mean, I was a full-grown, mature adult man with kids. And so it's not just something that young people have to guard against, but it's something that all of us have to guard against. So I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of people, and hopefully they can learn from mine and many others' mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Would you say it's, when you get into different, like painkillers or anything really, would you say it's more of a gradual thing? Like you start using them to, because you have legit injuries and they help you, and then would it be a gradual thing where, you don't realize that you're taking too many of them, and after a while, it just catches up to you?
Absolutely. There's not one guy that I know and that I was associated with in that business who went through the problems of addiction, and there were so many, and so many that lost their lives. But not a one of them started out wanting to end up that way. They started out like I did. I was battling a tricep injury, an elbow injury, and I was having a hard time sleeping at night on the road. I was having a hard time doing what I would normally do in the ring. I just couldn't perform the way I needed to and do a lot of the things I needed to do. And I was on the road one night with John Nord and Kurt Hennig, and I just made the comment, we were all in a rental car, that, boy, my elbow was killing me. And Hennig said, well, what are you taking for it? And I remarked that I was taking just something off over the counter like goody powders. And he just laughed, and he said, how do you make it on that? And I said, well, what do you suggest? And he recommended prescription pain medication. And innocently enough, the next night he gave me a couple to go out and work on before my match. He gave me two to take, and it took away the pain, and I was able to perform like I was pre-injury and prior to my arm getting hurt. And those two led to, and I go into greater detail in this documentary, that those two, innocently enough, just taking them where I could go out and work and do what I had dreamed of doing, continue providing for my family, continue performing at the level that I needed to. Those two eventually led to over 120 a day, and literally cost me so much in life years later. So absolutely, it was an innocent thing, just to be able to go out and continue to work like we felt like we needed to.
Yeah. I do want to bring up, I've said this many times on the show, was I think it was when I was in junior high. I'd come home, and I'd watch Global Wrestling, lifetime wrestling fan. I watched, every wrestling was on TV, but I was really into Global when it started on. And I always thought it was really going to blow up into a big promotion. It didn't last too long. But when you were in Global, did you have that idea that this was going to be like the next big wrestling promotion?
Yeah, we all did. It was something that had been in the works for a number of months. And, we kept hearing that, okay, we're just right around the corner from kicking this thing off. There was some big wealthy businessman from Africa that was literally going to dump tens of millions of dollars into this company, and we were going to compete head-to-head and nose-to-nose with the WWF and WCW. Well, that didn't happen. That wealthy businessman from Africa was never produced, but yet they were able to get some financial backers. But nonetheless, we all went into it thinking, wow, this is going to be something special. This can be something big. And we had a great combination of young, upcoming talent like myself, and then a lot of seasoned veterans, a lot of already established stars there as well. So, yeah, we had every reason to believe that we were on to something big that would last a long time. We were on ESPN Monday through Friday from 4 to 5 o'clock. So there was no reason initially to think anything else. But as we all know, that wasn't able to happen, and it was very short-lived.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that kind of got their start there. I know you were in AW beforehand, but that's really where I think you really got a lot of fame. As the Patriot was in Global, and Harlem Heat, and Bagwell, and Raven was there. All kinds of people. Did WWF at the time and WCW, did they come like trying to get you like right away because you were, you know, like the main star for the promotion and you had a great look and everything?
They did. Early contacted me when he was booking for WCW. I met with Vince back in the early 90s, coming off you know, our initial success in Global. So I had opportunities to go both places, but I chose instead, about that same time, I was presented the opportunity to go work for Baba in All Japan. And at that point in time in my career, that meant more to me than going to WWF, going to WCW. I think everybody knows that, especially those of us in the business, that what a feather in your cap it was to be invited to work for Baba and have an opportunity to work for Baba. The style of work, the success they were having at that particular time was really as good as any. And so I chose that at that particular time. I chose that route to go to work for Baba rather than take WCW or WWF on the opportunity that they had presented to me.
How is the Patriot gimmick accepted in Japan? You know, because obviously it's American Patriot. Did people treat you like as a hero, or like were you an ultimate villain, or didn't it? I don't know, because you know I don't know how you're treated there as a Patriot.
No, it's funny. I can't speak for any other company that was in existence at that time in Japan, but All Japan at that point in time was just having unparalleled success. I mean, we were selling out everywhere. Matter of fact, we sold out close to 200 consecutive shows in the Tokyo area. And it was a little different. There really weren't any heels or baby faces within the fan base of that company. Our TV show was an hour, and it was an hour of nothing but matches. There were no interviews. There were no promos. There were no valets. There were no managers. Every match ended with a clean finish. 1, 2, 3. Somebody got their hand raised. There were no DQs. There were no double countouts. None of that. We sold tickets, and we had people tune into our show based on what went on the ring. The believability of it, the action of it, the hard style. It was a very stiff style, a very snug style. But no, there wasn't a babyface heel thing there within the fan base of All Japan Pro Wrestling. So I was received very well and got over very well with the Japanese fans.
Mm-hmm. Did you like that style? You know, obviously it's a very physical style.
I did. I think my background as a football player probably had a lot to do with that. I just like that snugness. To me, it's easier to sell. It's more believable. I think it lends itself to a higher quality of match. Now, having said all that, in all the years that I worked in the business, the most special years to me were spent in Japan. That was where I was at my happiest and felt, you know, I had just everything there. The quality of matches, the product that we put out, the guys I was working with, I just felt like it was the best part of my career. But having said all that, that style also lent itself to a more physical style, and in turn cost me years on my career. You know, my career ended because of recurring chronic injuries, and not just little small things, but things that you couldn't work with, these type of injuries. And I trace it directly back to that style. So while I love doing it, it cost me years and it cut my career short.
Yeah. I also want to know, when you started wearing the mask, did you find that a hindrance, or did you find it easier to work with while you're wearing a mask?
No. At first it was extremely difficult. You know, I flew out to Dallas for the very first TV taping for Global. And I took my Patriot gear with me. I had no ideas of doing anything but that. Nobody had said anything to me different. And literally just a few hours before our very first taping there at the Sportatorium in Dallas, Joe Pedicino and Bill Eady called me aside and presented me with this idea about the Patriot. And I was all in. And I thought it was a great idea, especially at the time with what we were involved in the Middle East. We had gone into Kuwait to liberate Kuwait, where Iraq had invaded, so patriotism was at a very, very high level, so I thought we could take advantage of that. But at first, the first masks that I had were very thick. They didn't breathe very well. They didn't stretch very well. They were very heavy. and they were very hot. There was no air conditioning in the Sportatorium, and we started our TV tapings there in the dead of summer. So it was extremely hot, and also, too, I found it where it really limited my vision, especially my peripheral vision. You know, when you're taking off to your right to go hit the ropes, and all of a sudden, before you were wearing the mask, all you had to do was just cut your eyes to the right and just glance that way to make sure you were headed in the right direction. Well, you couldn't do that with the mask on because you were blocked somewhat. So you literally had to turn your head, or I literally had to turn my head to make sure I was heading in the right direction. So it took some time getting used to it. But I'd say after probably, 3 or 4 weeks, and then I think I adapted pretty well and got used to it, and then never thought about it again. It just was as natural as having boots on.
Mm-hmm. Did you, become friends with the handsome stranger who was there at the time, Buff Bagwell? Because, obviously when you went to WCW, they put you guys together as Stars and Stripes. What was the connection there?
Well, we became friends there, but not close friends. When I got to WCW, I'd been there several months, and they were doing things, booking by committee. Flair, Arn Anderson, Kevin Sullivan, Greg Gagne were just to name a few of the guys that were on the booking committee there. And they came to me with the idea about teaming up with Mark. And I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was a great idea at the time. And so we became obviously better friends and closer friends just due to the fact that we spent so much time together on the road, traveling together, working out together, and we remain good friends to this day. I talked with Mark quite a bit, just talked with him a couple of days ago. So, it's been a friendship that's lasted, over 20 years or heck, even longer than that, probably 22, 23 years.
Well, when you said I was booked by committee, did other people, have other ideas for you, and did everyone, was there anybody specific be like, we want to put the belt on you, or we want you at a certain spot on the card, or, what was that like? Well,
initially, when I got in there, I was brought in to work as a singles wrestler, but they did have, and of course, wrestling's changed now. There's not the emphasis on tag teams that it used to be, but they had the Nasty Boys there. They had Harlem Heat. They had Pretty Wonderful with Orndorff and Roma. They had Slater was working with somebody, and Jimmy Golden and Robert Fuller. So they had quite a few talented, very popular tag teams, and so they wanted Bagwell and I to join that group, and because there was a lot of emphasis on tag team wrestling. Now, it wasn't long after that when they scored the big coup with Hogan and Savage and Beefcake and brought those guys in from WWF, and at that point in time, that became the focus of the company. That was where the spotlight was shown at that time. So I think it sort of made everybody else just sort of an afterthought at that point. Once they brought in Hogan and Savage and Beefcake, and then those guys that they brought in from New York or from Vince, not only were they the focus of the company at that time, but it was what they wanted to do. You're not going to pay Hogan that kind of money and bring him in. You're not going to pay Savage that kind of money and bring him in for them to listen to ideas. They're going to tell you what they want to do, and they're going to give you the ideas that they have. So everything really started focusing just, on that core group of guys. And of course, probably wasn't very long after that I packed my bags and got out of there.
Yeah. Had you known Eric Bischoff from AWA? Were you friendly with him?
Yeah, and that Minnesota connection was what led me to going to work for WCW. Bischoff was our color commentator. He did our TV show for us. Of course, Gagne, Greg, was one of the reasons I was brought into the AWA. And, of course, then at this time, he's working for WCW. So that Minnesota connection, that AWA connection that existed between myself and Greg and myself and Bischoff was the reason that I sat down with Bischoff initially, and we talked about me coming in, and we probably had about a 2-hour discussion. At the end of it, we had agreed to a 3-year deal. And that had a lot to do with me going there.
Mm-hmm. Intro, do you have a question?
Yeah, I got a question from Facebook. Gary, he wants to know, who was your favorite opponent to work with to date?
Well, there's so many of them, but again, I'm going to go back to Japan. I think one of the 2 or 3 greatest workers I've ever worked with, or that's ever lived, was Kobashi. And I worked with Kobashi in single matches. I worked against him in tag matches. I worked with him as my tag team partner, and literally was involved in hundreds of matches with Kobashi as an opponent or as a partner, and never had a bad match, never. And also, too, I enjoyed working as a tag team in Japan. There was a big emphasis on tag teams there, and they later paired me up with Jackie Fulton. He worked as the Eagle, and we had, again, hundreds of matches with Doug Furnace and Danny Crockett, and never had a bad match with those guys. So I would say those 2, Crockett and Furnace, and then Kobashi, are probably my all-time favorites as far as people working with. And you just had continuity with them. It just moved. It was fluid. It was literally like a dance, and I don't think we ever had a misstep.
Mm-hmm. Chris Schultz, he also has another question. He wants to know, why did you leave WCW?
Well, again, as I mentioned earlier, all of us that were there before Hogan and Savage and Beefcake was brought in, we were actually, I felt like at that time, sort of put on the back burner, and everything was geared toward those guys. And also, too, it just wasn't I'd spent several years in Japan riding that bus with those Americans, guys that over there it's a little different. You're on the same bus when you're traveling. You stay in the same hotel. Most of the time you stay on the same floor. You eat at the same restaurants. You work out in the same gyms. And you're in the same locker room. And it's a little different in the States. You can go your own way. So I was used to a closeness, just an unbelievable camaraderie with the guys that I'd worked with in Japan. And I get to WCW, and it's totally different. It was somewhat of a cliquish company. There were those guys that were loyal to Flair. He was on the booking committee. There were those guys that were loyal to Kevin Sullivan. And it just lent itself to have, I felt like a very divided locker room. And I just didn't feel like it was a good atmosphere. And the longer I was there, the less I enjoyed being there. And so I think I had about a year left on my deal, and I just walked out on it. And I'd already made arrangements to go back to Japan, and so I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into didn't mean to interrupt you, but I go into greater detail again in this DVD, Del the Patriot Wilkes, the man behind the mask, about what took place the night when Bischoff realized that I had no-showed him at a pay-per-view and was actually on a plane heading back to Japan. I'll tease it just a little bit. I actually went in and sat down with Bischoff and said, look, I want out. I'm not happy. I've got an opportunity to go back to Japan, and I'm going to be halfway around the world. I won't be competing against you. No one in America will see me on TV. Let me out. Let me go. And he refused to do it, so I did what I thought I had to do, and of course, after that, he did what he thought he had to do, and it was quite a unique situation there for a while, but I just got unhappy. I just grew unhappy with the situation with the company.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look forward to hearing that on the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, we got our caller on the line, Dustin.
Evening, Jack and Incher.
How you doing, Dustin?
Evening, Del. First of all, I will say I had the pleasure of meeting you back in that old famous tent shed called the Sportatorium when you worked for Global many years ago.
Yes, sir.
And I have actually had 2 questions. What was your fondest memories of that famous tent shed? And who did you really like to work with in the old AWA?
In the old AWA?
Yes.
Well, I think my fondest memories of the Sportatorium probably was my first night there. I had watched I think it was World Class.
Yes, World Class was the original. Then USWA came in before Global did.
Yeah, and so I had heard about this legendary building. Heck, Elvis even played that building back in the mid to late 50s. So not just was it a famous wrestling venue, but I mean, just so many great musical acts had played there. So, it just had this iconic status about it. And I couldn't believe it when I got there. And the very first time we pulled up in the parking lot, in a gravel parking lot, and it's just this wood frame building that looks like if you threw a match on it, it would light up in about 30 seconds. And you go inside, and it's just a small venue, but the people are right on top of you. There's no air conditioning in the ceilings. There are these big, huge exhaust fans that pull air through. And, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it had a charm about it, man. It was just and just the historical value of it was something very, very special. And two, you couple that with, the beginning of that company, and everybody had high hopes, and in those first several months of the TV tapings where we were doing the tournaments for the North American belt and the TV belt, those are just wonderful, fabulous memories that I have. And as far as working with someone in the AWA, obviously enjoyed working with Zabisco, worked with Larry there several times. Enjoyed working with the Destruction Crew, Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. And as a matter of fact, DJ Peterson and I were the very last tag team champions ever in the AWA, and we beat the Destruction Crew, Enos and Bloom, for those belts. So enjoyed working with those guys along with Zabisco.
Mm-hmm. That's a great tag team, very underrated. I don't think they did great in the AWA. I know they had the Beverly Brothers run in WWE, but never. I don't think they ever got to the heights they should have.
I agree completely.
Did you get to keep the tag titles, the actual belts?
No, I didn't. They kept those, and that was a pretty sad deal because it was shortly thereafter when the company folded, and it wasn't long after that DJ tragically lost his life in a motorcycle accident, and he was just a good guy, just a superhuman being, and it was just a tragic thing that happened there with him.
Mm-hmm. Anything else there, Dustin?
Yeah, I just remember two other people that started, well, one kind of didn't start in Global, but the other one did. One was, he went by the Lightning Kid, a.k.a. Sean Waltman.
That's correct.
The other one was, he went by the Soul Taker, but everybody best knows him as the Godfather.
Yeah, both of those guys got their first big break in Global. You're exactly right. Good memory. And, as I said earlier, there was just a lot of young talent there at that time, guys that went on to have great careers. And then you couple that with guys that were already established talent like Stan Lane and Al Perez and heck, even Foley came in and worked there. Yeah. Cactus Jack and Yeah, there was just a lot of good talent.
Austin was there for a while. Steve Austin.
Yeah, he came in after I had left, but yeah, he was there for a while as well.
Regular base. It was a good team. Thanks for calling in, Dustin.
All right. Talk to y'all later, guys.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye. But yeah, the 1, 2, 3 Lightning Kid and Jerry Lynn matches. Those were like the first. What kind of became like the cruiserweight matches, where guys were doing the big dives off the top rope to outside the ring and stuff.
Yeah, those guys were good.
Interest, another question from the chat room or the Facebook page?
Yeah, on Facebook, Nelson Scott, he wants to know what your expectations in WWF in 1997 were. Were you promised any championships or anything like that?
No, I wasn't. I actually came in there with, I had, and like I said earlier, I had talked with him before, as far back as the early 90s, about going to work there. Bruce Pritchett contacted me because, Bruce was also in Global as Brother Love, or may not have been Brother Love, but he came into Global off his Brother Love, momentum. And he was working in the office in the mid to late 90s for Vince, and he contacted me and wanted to know if I'd like to sit down with Vince and see if we couldn't work something out. So they flew me up, and I sat down with Vince and JR. And Vince was the one that really wasn't that excited about the Patriot character. He just felt like that at that point in time in pro wrestling, that a masked guy couldn't get over. And now, obviously, I felt different because it had in Global, it had in WCW, it had in Japan. But for some reason, he just felt like that it wouldn't. But he reluctantly, during the course of our meeting with me and JR, trying to persuade him that what we felt was a different viewpoint than his, that it could get over. And I think he found out rather quickly that the character did get over and was still very popular with the fans, and that catapulted me into that angle and that program with Bret, because, you know, they had turned Bret and he was on this anti-American rant and campaign. So I think Vince did realize that it was still a very popular character and he could use it, especially in the program with Bret.
Mm-hmm. Now, did he still want the Patriot character but without the mask, or did he just have like a totally different idea for you?
No, he wanted it without the mask, and as a matter of fact, once Vince got on board with the fact that this character was over and was popular with the fans, he approached me about the idea of, hey, taking it off and doing an interview for the first time ever. Just let people see who you are and let them realize that there is a face, and he was the first one that really coined that term, that there is a man behind this mask, there is a face behind this mask. And so they sent a production crew down to my home in Columbia, South Carolina, and literally spent a couple of days with me, just following me and my family around and sitting down and doing an interview without the mask. But yet I continued to work with it on. But yet, you know, I think it allowed people to relate to me better. Hey, this guy played football at the University of South Carolina. You know, this guy, he's got a wife and he's got kids, and here's what they look like, and here's what he looks like. But yet, when he goes to work, he represents his country, and he puts that mask on because of that pride, the patriotism that he does have for his country. So he was the one that came up with that idea, and I thought it was a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Was there any like jealousy or resentment from any other wrestlers because you come in and like you immediately put in the main events with Bret Hart?
Well, I'm sure there were some people that were not happy with it. No one ever actually voiced that opinion to me. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I had heard from some of the guys that, you know, there were guys grumbling about that, and, you know, but you know, that's just part of the business. Listen, and I understand that. It's a business where guys have big egos, and they need those kind of egos, and rightfully so. And so, I mean, I could understand if people had a problem with it, but it was about business, and you know, that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Was the Clique around at this point in time? And if they were, did you have any run-ins with them?
Well, you know, it was the beginning of the problems with Bret and Shawn, and they were very obvious. I spent a lot of time with Bret because of the program that we were working together, so we spent a lot of time in locker rooms, we spent a lot of time in restaurants, we spent a lot of time on the phone just talking about things we wanted to do with this program and matches and where we wanted to go with them. And he didn't hide his frustration with, you know, the way things were going in the company and the direction of the company. And it was very apparent that there was friction there between he and Shawn. And, of course, Shawn had his group with Hunter and there was Bret and Owen and Pillman and Neidhart and Davey Boy. So, it had started dividing itself into those factions. And, of course, obviously got worse after I left and after I could no longer physically continue to work. But it was very apparent. I mean, if you had two eyes and could see, you know, you could see that there was just dissension there.
Mm-hmm. With, you know, what you've gone through, you mentioned earlier, and it's part of the DVD that's coming out. What are your thoughts on the wellness policy that WWE has right now?
I'm glad they've done that. I've been, in years past, I've been very open and very critical of them. You know, when you have so many of your buddies die, you see so many of their kids that are left without a father, their wives are left without a husband, and just time and time again, one of your buddies dies on the road in a hotel room, you know, by himself, away from everybody that loves him and cares for him. It just really starts getting to you. And so I was very critical of him initially, and but I think they've done a fabulous job as of late, or a much better job with the wellness program. You know, I get a newsletter every quarterly, as does anyone that's ever worked for Vince, and they offer rehab to anyone that's struggling with addiction, and they pay for it. It's of no cost to any of the former superstars. And I know several guys who I won't name, but that have had to use that, and several of them on many occasions as they battle addiction and in trying to get their life back together. And time again, Vince would send them through treatment and pay for it. And they also, not only are they trying to help guys in that way, but through the newsletter you read that they have scholarship funds set up where guys can apply for scholarships, and scholarship money is awarded a couple of times a year for guys to go back to school and get their education. And also they have programs where they will line you up with people that can help you with your financial situation and help you in investing money and saving money and trying to prepare for the future. So I think they've come a long way, and I think they're truly making an effort to try to help the guys, not only the guys that are current guys on that roster, but guys that used to work there. And so I do applaud them for that. I don't know, is it perfect? Does it have flaws? It may. I don't know. But still, someone that's been critical in the past, to see the efforts they're making now, I do have to say good job.
Yeah. And I know some people say, well, they do it to protect the company or to have a good public image. But at the same time, no matter what some of the motivations would be, if people are helped from it, that's always a good, positive thing.
Absolutely. And listen, what company would not do it?
Right.
To make the company look good? I mean, that's going to be part of the reason that it's done, and I understand that, and you do too. But like you said, if the end result is people get help, who cares why they do it? They get help.
Exactly. Yeah. Would there have been, maybe you wouldn't have thought at the time, but at the time when you had a lot of problems, when you were in WWE or even WCW, do you think if you would have asked for help, like anything would have that would have been available?
That's hard to say. It may have been. I think the one that, and again, this is something that I go into greater detail about in the DVD, but I will briefly mention it here. The one that just really, really stood out to me was Pillman in the situation with Brian. And Brian and I had known each other since college. We played football against each other in college. Brian was also a heck of a college football player. And he was in a bad way there at the end before he passed. And it was painfully obvious for everyone. I mean, if you were backstage, if you were in the locker room, I mean, if you were in the building, I mean, it was just awfully apparent that Brian was in a mess and needed help. And he didn't get that help. And I think when help was offered, he resisted it and did so in a very vocal way. And I think, then the help was retracted and he was allowed to continue in that downward spiral that he was in. But that was the one that always stood out to me, and just really even today is just etched in my memory as a guy that was crying out. This guy needed something, and he needed it quick. Otherwise, he was going to crash and burn, and he eventually did. So I don't know if that answers your question, but he didn't get the help that he desperately needed. And at that point in time in the business, I don't know that any of us would have. And if the help would have been made available, we probably would have all reacted the same way Brian did. Who are you to tell me I've got a problem? Leave me alone. Mm-hmm. Just let me go to work. So I don't know. Mm-hmm.
It's it would also been there's always, I know from people said there's always if you would take time off, then someone else could also take your spot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was my mindset. That was all of our mindset. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, I had a doctor tell me, listen, we need to reattach your tricep to your elbow. And if you work behind a desk, you could be back to work in a month, but you don't work behind a desk. You are in a very physical type of work, and you're going to need to take a year off for this tricep to properly heal. And I said, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. And I took 3 months off and went back to work, and then within a week of getting back on the road or being back in Japan, it ripped again. But yeah, we all have that mindset that, man, I can't afford to take time off. There's no way. There'll be somebody else in my spot, and it's that old saying, out of sight, out of mind. And none of us want to be out of sight.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you still have problems with your tricep today?
I do. my major problems are with my knees. I had my wrist fused back in November, my right wrist. I had a complete fusion. That was my 15th orthopedic surgery, and I think probably 8 of them have been knee surgeries. I've had my right knee replaced twice. And so I really, really struggle with my knees and getting around and walking. So it's a daily battle. It's a daily struggle. And some days are better than others, but there's very few good days.
Mm-hmm. What do you do now for the pain? How do you handle the pain today?
I take a lot of ibuprofen 800.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a few years back. I was taking so many of those headache powders, those goody powders, that I was pounding about 8 to 10 of them a day, and I developed a very serious ulcer and had some very serious stomach issues as related to that. So I had to stop that. So, I use the anti-inflammatories and the ibuprofen 800s.
Mm-hmm. Now that's actually what Terry Funk always recommends for wrestlers who have a lot of pain.
Well, I don't know how effective they are, but I guess they work a little bit. But
Mm-hmm. A lot of people have been asking here, Ed Gonzalez, independent wrestler, how much did Sal Sincere, Tom Brandi pay for the Patriot gimmick?
He didn't pay a penny for it. That's one of those big internet lies that does not exist. He didn't pay a penny for it. Tom and I have. The last time we spoke to each other, the last time we saw each other, he came over to do a tour in Japan, in all Japan. And it just didn't go well there for him, and he was never brought back. And that was the last time I've spoke a word to Tom Brandi. So I didn't sell him anything. He didn't buy anything. He just took it upon himself to become me. And I guess I'm probably the best thing that's ever happened to Tom. And I've done quite a few podcasts recently and to promote our project and our DVD, and I've shared this story. I've had just countless number of fans over the last few months send me messages through Facebook just telling me how nice it was to meet me at the most recent show they attended, and how good it was to talk to me and to see me back in the ring. And they even produced pictures of what they thought was me and them together. And, I let them all know that was not in me. In fact, it was probably Tom Brandi. It may have been somebody else. But they were all suspicious from the get-go, the fans were. The majority of them even said, in communicating with me, that they said, "Are you Del Wilkes?" And the response they got back was, "Yeah, I'm Del." And so he's even taking it that far as to just not only present himself as the Patriot, but to present himself as Del Wilkes. And
that's pretty bad.
Even to sell pictures of me. I know several years back he did a shoot DVD, and the cover of it was me. It wasn't him. So I find that very, very pathetic and very sad, actually.
I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's just always been. Do you think that's something that he put out there himself, that he bought the gimmick from you?
He had to, because it didn't come from me.
Yeah.
And I can promise you that. So he had to be the one to put it out there. And I just don't get it. I guess maybe I think differently than most people. Obviously, I think differently than Tom. It would embarrass me to have to pretend to be someone else. I take more pride in myself than that. If I couldn't make it as me, as a character that I've come up with, or a character that I've created and cultivated, then I would really, really feel pretty bad about my ability to have to present myself as someone else. And it's pretty easy to do. You can put a mask on and say you are who you want to be. Heck, we even had a woman that worked for the NAACP in Washington that said she was a black woman, and she's been white all her life. So I guess it's easy to do nowadays.
Exactly. It's very true. Yeah, that's, wow. It's funny because I did put up a banner, promoting that you're going to be on the show, and I just wrote the Patriot on it. And a lot of people asked me, they were like, is it Del Wilkes, or is it someone just pretending to be the... And so I just started telling them, but no, it's the real Patriot on the show. So I even said that before we were talking about earlier. I was like, we don't just have some random guy on,
Right. And but evidently there are guys that are doing it more than just the area where Tom works. I had a promoter last year call me, and he had just booked the Patriot to be on the show in Louisiana and Texas, and then he found out that it wasn't me, and so evidently there's more than just Tom Brandi out there doing it.
Wow, it's like the modern Doink. There for a while, everyone was Doink the Clown on independent shows. Yeah,
and that's just again, I think I have more confidence in my ability, and just, I couldn't do that. There's no way I could do that. That would just, to me, that's a testament about me saying, wow, you're just not good enough to be yourself, or, you've got to pretend to be someone else. But, that's what he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you would have, if someone would have come to you and said, can I use the Patriot gimmick, what would have your answer been?
I would have asked them not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anybody would have done that. Just out of respect. I would have politely asked them not to. As a matter of fact, here a couple of years ago, some guy that just works little independent shows, little outlaw shows, asked me. He sent me a Facebook message and asked if it would be okay if he did, and that he had in the past. And I asked him, I said, well, I would rather you not. There's nothing I can do if you won't do it. But I would rather you not, and at least he said in messaging me back that he wouldn't. But now whether or not he did, I don't know. But
well, at least he was showing some respect and asking you. And,
yeah,
yeah. Easy E here in the chat wants to know one of the biggest fighters for Del in the WWE was Jim Cornette. How does he feel about Cornette, and does he still talk to him?
Oh yeah, I still like Jim. We're friends. And I see Jim from time to time at events where we're both in attendance doing appearances and autographs and things like that. And Jim was one of the few allies I had in my corner in the WWF. I didn't get hired there because of somebody I know. There was no bloodline that led to that. So I went in there, and not that you have to have somebody in your corner, but obviously it doesn't hurt to have that. And Jim was the guy that was in my corner and fought very hard for me. And I've seen the interview where he talks about Kevin Dunn, and I appreciate Jim's allegiance to me and him doing that for me. I've always held Jim in the highest regard.
Yeah. People can check out Jim Cornette interviews on our show here. He's been on a few times. But we'll let everybody know, the man behind the mask, you guys can still help out the campaign, and we'll have the link right on the website here, or you can search for it on Kickstarter, and you'll find it very easily. And looking forward to seeing the DVD, and really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Well, guys, I appreciate you having me on and giving me an opportunity to talk a little bit about my life and career and to promote the DVD. And I want to thank everyone that's gone to Kickstarter and contributed. And like you said, we've still got a little ways to go, so don't stop now, don't let up now. And there's just a list of wonderful prizes and gifts that you can get based on your donation. And I think it's a neat thing where wrestling fans can be a part of this. They can be a part of the project. They can get their name in the credits. And that just shows me it's just how special the wrestling fans are. I played college football. I had a very brief NFL career. So I've been exposed to fan bases and fans of a particular sport, but there's nobody like the wrestling fans. They're the most loyal, and you can count on them, and I certainly appreciate everything they've done to help us fund this project. And they can still go to Kickstarter.com and contribute and be a part of it.
Yeah, well, very cool. And Michael Elliot puts out a lot of quality products. He's a member of our website. He's always... I think the first one was the Jimmy Valiant one. That was great, and all the ones he's put out since then have been terrific, and really looking forward to this one.
Michael's the best, and he does a wonderful job, and I'm just thrilled to death to be partnered with him and working with him on this project.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on, and I'd love to have you back after the DVD comes out.
Guys, I'd love to come back anytime. Just let me know.
Excellent.
Hey, this is Bob Bagwell. Guess what?
I'm In Your Head, and you're also listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. Listen to it, or Bart is going to show you all his stuff. Ha 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 ha.